Yeah, it's teased it a couple times.
Yeah, I really thought over the weekend we were gonna get it, but didn't seem to happen.
Yes, that was interesting. I woke up and I was like, it rained last night. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's saving on my watering my yard.
I know. I haven't had to turn my irrigation system on. This is about as late as it's ever been. So,
Yeah.
all right. So far, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 already. So that's good.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Do we need one more, Jeff, or are we good?
Let's see. I think we have.
We have Elaine Clam that I'm promoting the panelists here,
Okay,
and David Nightingale said he would not be able to attend.
okay. Jim Cooper thought he'd be here in person, but I haven't seen him.
I think we need 8. We need 8 for a quorum. So
Okay,
we have 14 seated. So it has to be half plus 1.
okay.
It's more than half. Oh, all we need is 2 more. So I think we're probably gonna be okay.
Hey, I forgot that we were able to do it in person. Do we just show up or do we have to let you know ahead of time if we wanted to come in?
You can just show up, and we're at the room at the front of the building by the lobby.
Okay, cool. I might try next time.
We would love to see you in person, Greg.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
We have 7 now, just 1 more.
Okay.
Actually, I assume the one that says Effie Clam is actually Elaine. Is that correct?
I think that is correct.
Then that would then make 8. So
Okay.
I guess we can see if anybody else pops in. I don't know if you want to wait another minute or 2 to give them a chance, or
I'll wait another minute, then we'll get rolling.
but we do have a quorum, so I make sure that I guess it looks like all of our presenters are here too, so that's a plus.
Okay, well then let's call this July 6th meeting of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee to order, and very quickly, I'll call the roll of the members, and then Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you for staff. Jim Cooper. I don't think Jim is with us. Commissioner Carolina Mejia. Commissioner Joe Downing from the Port of Olympia.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Joe. Councilmember Joan Cathy from the city of Tumwater.
Good morning.
Joan is here. Councilmember Ed Kunkel from the city of Lacey. I thought I saw Ed. Is he here? Oh, I don't see him now. Councilmember Joseph Richardson from the city of Young. Councilmember Elaine Clam from the city of Tenino.
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent, thank you, Elaine. And Councilmember Steve Purcell from the town of Bucota. I don't see Steve. Greg Schoenbachler, I know you're here. Wishing you were here in the room, Greg.
Hey, everybody.
Richard Moon, I saw Richard.
Yeah.
Yes. Delroy Cox, Delroy is here. Chad Sutter. David Nightingale, oh, you said that he was not going to be able to make it, is that correct?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Laura Busby from the Department of Ecology.
Hello, good day.
Excellent, thank you, Laura. And Jim Cooper just walked into the room.
Hi.
So we're gonna count him as here. Jeff, you want to introduce staff, please?
Certainly. Let's see. I'm gonna go down here. First off, we have Kathy Clark. It's there. In the room with you is Amanda Romero.
Hi.
Also, I'll go ahead and go into this one. I want to introduce our newest team member, Fair Holiday. I'll give you a little background here. Fair comes to us from Colorado, where she worked most recently as a program manager for a small nonprofit. She holds a master's degree in public health and will be supporting the work of our education outreach programs by maintaining our online print and solid waste facilities information. She'll also be supporting both Rob and Johan, our other ENO staff, their program work in residential multifamily youth, in-house and commercial programs. So I want to welcome Fair, and I'm going to give her an opportunity to say hi, tell us all about her life story really quickly.
Oh no, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And just want to say that I'm really excited to be a part of Thurston County and really excited to meet you all and look forward to our work together going forward. Thanks.
Welcome, Fair. And where were you in Colorado?
I was in Lafayette, which is a small town near Boulder in Denver, sort of in
I know it well.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Thurston County.
Thank you.
We have a couple others. We have Art Starry from Public Health.
Good morning.
I actually see that Commissioner Mejia is now on the call.
Great.
Good morning, I'm here.
Let's see, looking down here. I think that's it for staff as far as presenters. Our consultant Wendy Mifflin is on the call. And then let's see, I think we have other, that's it for staff. We have guests. Oh, we had somebody else walk in.
Yes, council member Ed Kunkel from the city of Lacey just walked in the room.
I apologize for my tardiness.
We're not into the serious stuff yet, so we're gonna let it go.
Okay, I appreciate it.
I was late too. I can't remember how long it takes to go anywhere.
I know, forget that.
And we're out here.
Yeah.
And I see we also have another county staff that just got on. We have Chris Hawkins, also from Public Health.
Good morning, folks. Good to see you.
And then did I miss any other staff? I think that's it for staff.
And as far as guests, I see we have Steve Gilmore. Are you there, Steve?
I am.
And Casey Mock from TRPC.
Everyone,
Hi, Casey. And any other guests that we're missing?
I think Jeff Harwood.
Oh, Jeff Harwood,
White
yes.
Connections.
Jeff is here.
Excellent. I wish I could say it's good to see you, Jeff, but I can't see you. Anybody else that we've missed?
And Allison Osterberg with TRPC, one of your speakers today.
Hi, Allison. I should have seen you there. Good to see you. Excellent. So we do have a quorum. Has everyone had an opportunity to take a look at the agenda and the two sets of minutes that went out? We sent out minutes for June 1 and May 4th. Let's take the agenda first. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. Does everyone vote in favor of the agenda?
Yes.
The agenda passes. And let's take the minutes of May 4th first. Delroy, I know you had some thoughts on those minutes. Are you comfortable with the way they're presented?
Yes, I am, and I would move the minutes be approved.
Thank you for that. And we have a second here in the room from Mr. Cooper. All those in favor of approving the minutes of May 4th, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And now let's take a look at the minutes for June 1.
I'll move approval.
Thank you. Move for approval by Jim Cooper. Is there a second?
Second.
Delroy Cox seconded that. All those in favor of approving the minutes for June 1, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Public comment. Jeff or Amanda, did we have any public comments submitted?
No.
No? Nothing? Anything from the room? If not, we are cruising along to old business. I don't think we have any old business, do we, Jeff?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay, then, new business. Let's talk about the potential South County Transfer Station update. Wendy, I know, is here.
Morning, everyone, and I'm attempting to share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
We can.
Okay, so as you know, we are working with Thurston County Solid Waste on a South County Transfer Station engagement project. And so wanted to bring to you this morning a listing of some of our upcoming events and outreach efforts, go through those with you. And just so you know, this document will go out, Amanda will send it out after the meeting so that all of you will have it to take back to your respective councils. So first of all, we are sending out a mailer to approximately 20,000 South County residents. And those should probably go out, I'm thinking late next week. And I'll share the postcard with you when I'm done with the engagement efforts that we're going over today. But the postcard's really cool, so I'll show you that. And then I'll also show you the survey. On July 12th, we have a meeting with Waste Connections, and that's scheduled from 10 to 11:30. Where we're going to go over some project background and details with personnel at Waste Connections. And so Jeff has been kind enough to arrange that meeting with his group. And what we will do is get Waste Connections feedback on the potential for a South County transfer station, what kind of operational needs they will have, bringing trucks into that facility, and then what extra services they might be looking for in a transfer station down there. So we're excited about that meeting next week. On July 15th and 16th, HDR staff will be conducting intercept surveys at the Rainier and Rochester Dropbox sites. And I'll show you a copy of that survey when I get done with the summary of events as well. But we will be going out to the sites and surveying customers on site, looking at what services and operational preferences the existing customers at the site have. And so at the last meeting, the SWAC reviewed some of that survey. And so we've incorporated your comments into that survey as well. So I'll share that in just a minute.
Hey, Wendy, I have a quick question. When you say the postcards are going to go out to South County, can you give me an idea of just, is that Tenino, Yelm, Rochester? Does it include Tumwater? What are we looking at?
It includes the majority of the South County area, and it's done by zip code. We will pick up a little bit of Tumwater, but not a lot based on zip code. So it will mostly be Tenino, Rainier, Rochester, that area down in there, Tenino as well.
And Yelm.
And Yelm, yes, sorry, Yelm.
Thank you.
On July 23rd, the master composters will be at the Tenino Farmers Market, and they'll be distributing our postcards about the project. And so the postcards have a QR code that you can go in and take the survey with. So we're excited to be getting that out in the public as well. On July 23rd, Thurston County will also be at the Yelm Community Barbecue, and we'll again be distributing cards. And then July 28th, we will have a virtual public meeting. So hoping to see some SWAC members' faces at that. And that will be from 5:30 to 6:30. And there'll be more information coming on that with the postcards. And we will also keep SWAC members apprised of that public meeting as well. And then there are a few events that are still be determined. We're working to set up a date to discuss project backgrounds and details with Republic Services. We don't have that scheduled yet. We're also looking at a meeting with Lewis County Solid Waste just to do some basic project background and details, since, you know, South County is so close to the border of Lewis County. want to have some opening discussions with them. And we also recognize that Lewis County has been looking at transfer station modifications to their facility down there as well. We attempted to schedule a meeting with the Thurston County Economic Development Council, but they have no meetings scheduled in July and August. So we're still talking to them about what would be appropriate to engage their staff and members as part of this project. And then also we will have an online engagement survey that will probably take, I know we're saying 10 to 15 minutes, but it doesn't take that long. And so that will be available on the website, and we welcome all of you to come in and try it when it gets available. And it's going to be a really great tool. So are there any questions on our engagement options that we're presenting?
I'm not seeing any hands. Oh, Jim.
Just a quick comment, Wendy. I think if memory serves me, the Chehalis Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis are the largest employer in South County. And
Yes.
so I wanted to make sure that there's a specific outreach to them.
Yes, we have that on our list of engagement as well. And we probably won't do that until August.
Okay, great. Thank you. The outreach schedule looks really ambitious and awesome. It'll be great to see solid waste out and around the community again. It's cool.
Yeah.
We're really excited to have, so we have 2 engineer in trainings going out to do the intercept surveys at the sites, and you can't believe how excited they are to get out onto the site and talk to people. I mean, it's just, well, it's driving me insane, but it's great. So
We are social animals.
I guess.
Yeah.
So can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the survey that we will be using when we're doing the intercept surveys at the sites. And we've gone through this a couple times. I think we're going to do it hard paper copy. We were going to do it online. But I think with the amount of customers that are serviced on Fridays and Saturdays there, it'll be faster if our people out at the site just mark it off as people go through the line. And so we're talking about what Thurston County owns and operates, the 2 drop box sites, and that we're evaluating the possibility of siting and developing a new transfer station. And specifically, we're looking at current service options and what the county should consider in the siting process. And so required answers are noted in red. And you will notice that name and email address are not required because we know that sometimes that freaks people out when you're out on the site. So that'll be optional. We also ask them if they would like to receive email updates about the project. And then now we get into some of the required responses. So we ask them if they currently subscribe to curbside service, yes or no. We want to know if it's coming in a Waste Connections vehicle or if they are self-haulers. Then we also ask them if you are a commercial or self-hauler so that we can get a feel for what is coming in. The majority of them will be self-haulers into the facility, but we also want to catch those that are being paid to bring materials in. And that's not going to be Waste Connections. Those are going to be the private haulers that are hauling for others. We're also asking what Dropbox site do you currently use? And then why do you use it? So these are check boxes. You can check all of them. And then what do you like about these services? And then what additional services would you like to have at a new facility? And these you can drag and drop in order, and they will change based on the order that you put them in. So we should get some good information about what the highest priorities are for participants down in the South County. And then what other services should we be considering as part of the project? And then the next section we get into operations, and this question specifically came from the SWAC members at the last meeting, wanting to know if you currently travel to the Waste and Recovery Center for recycling and disposal. We want to know if we're going to get extra customers potentially coming in. And then asking what days of operation best meet your disposal needs. How many miles do you travel to the site today? And then how many miles are you willing to travel? And that we have a bar that moves across so people can tell us how far they're willing to travel. And then in selecting a potential new site, what other aspects should we be considering? And when you push submit, you get an email back saying that you have successfully submitted your survey. And we will change it a little bit. So like I said, this is specific to the intercept survey. When we go live on the county's website, it'll be changed a little bit because, you know, we won't actually be out at the site surveying. So any questions about the intercept survey?
Richard.
Just one quick question, going back where you ask if you use the Rainier or Tenino Dropbox area or other, or don't use, it seems to me there might be some people who just routinely use the WARC, and maybe that should be included in that list with Rainier and Rochester.
That will be included in the online survey because this one is specific to Rainier and Rochester.
Oh, I see, okay.
So this is specific to the intercept survey at the sites, but when we do the one that's online, we will ask that question as well. Good question.
Any other questions for Wendy about the engagement piece of this project?
Yeah, I have, sorry I was late, guys.
Oh, that's okay. Hi, Joseph.
I had I don't know if, and I missed some of it, but it was, I think it's about the transfer stations, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had the Nisqually Valley News here in Yelm send me an email. They're interested in doing a story about the possible new locations and possible, well, I had mentioned at the last council meeting that these transfer stations will be closing at some point. And so they're interested in finding out more about it. So is there a person that I could direct them to? Because I don't seem to be the person that has knowledge about this as much as some of you, for a follow-up on because that way the awareness of it to Yelm would be maybe getting some involvement in these the surveys.
Jeff, do you have a thought of who to direct them to?
They can go ahead and address them to me.
Okay, Jeff.
And it's a good point is, and I think you might have missed it, is we will be out in the community at the Yelm Barbecue on the 23rd.
Oh, sweet.
So we'll have a lot of staff that's there. There'll be, besides talking about waste reduction and recycling, they will have like this card right here that they'll hand out to people that'll have a QR code on it where people can get online to take the survey, as well as inform them about this virtual community meeting that we're going to have. To get them that information. So yes, and as Wendy had mentioned previously, we're sending out about 20,000 of these postcards, and the Yelm area is one of the targeted areas that so residents in that area will be receiving the item that's on your screen right now.
Right on, Jeff. So would it be okay if I was to send them your information? If you'd like to know more about this, contact Jeff Bickford.
Certainly.
Because I am not an expert on this. I'm new.
No problem. And I just want to clarify one other thing is that it's not an absolute given that those will close. I mean, right. That this is, that we have a successful siting process. That, that's not always the case. So.
Well, this is exactly why they need to talk to somebody else.
Yes.
Right on.
And so just to finish up my little presentation, this is the front of the postcard that will be going out to the 20,000 on the mailing list. And you can see it's inviting them to the virtual community meeting, which is July 28th at 5:30. And we have a link to the website. Once the website comes up and live, which I think will be next week, we're finishing up on some website stuff this week. Everybody can go in, register for the virtual event, take the survey. And then the back side, you will see, we invite again, we have the QR code where you can scan in. We'll also be handing this out at events so that people can go in through the QR code and scan in. We have a little bit of Spanish translation on the back, and then information is required for interpretation and translation services. Questions on the postcard?
I self-haul and I really want to take it in person at Rainier. Was that July 15, did I say? Did I see?
Rainier is Friday the 15th, yes.
Okay.
You should be out asking people questions.
I should be out asking people questions. Yes, you're right. I should.
If you want to participate, we would love to have you out there on the site. So just
So I
let me
usually
know.
go on Saturday mornings, but I
Okay.
might have to go Friday on the 15th.
Okay, just let me know. We're there from 9 to 4. And so if you want to help with surveys, let me know.
Okay. Any other questions for Wendy? That was a great update. Thank you, Wendy. Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
everyone.
Art has his hand up.
Oh, Art has his hand up?
Oh, yeah, just quickly. So Wendy and Jeff, have you guys started to talk to the planning department folks about permits and all that other land use sort of stuff?
So we don't have a site yet, Art, so it would be premature for us to do that. We originally did a site analysis, and we did some background information that we provided to the county on what it will take for permitting. And so the health district department is also included in the requirements for that as well. So yes, we know that that will be a process.
Just checking to make sure that, you know, that people, I mean, I know that you've done lots of these different things, but just making sure that people are aware of that, and that's being, you're considering, I guess, the possibilities as you can narrow down sites. So
yes,
permits are my world, unfortunately.
Thanks for that question. That was a good one. Thank you, Art. Anybody else before we move on? I'm not seeing anything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. So let's go to Allison Osterberg from TRPC to hear about the climate mitigation plan.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks so much for having me join your group today. Allison Osterberg with Thurston Regional Planning Council, and I'm here with my colleague Casey Mock, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. I came to this group, I was looking back, I think it was in 2020 when we were in the public review stage of the plan, and got some great input from this group. And Amanda had just reached out for a little bit of an update on what's been going on. So I know there are folks in the room who are very familiar with some of the work that we're doing, and others who maybe it's new for. So I'm going to cover a range of areas, but with a little better in the plan, but with a little bit more focus on some of the solid waste pieces. And let me just pull up. There we go. You should be able to see my screen.
You can, thank you.
So the reason regionally we're working on climate mitigation is that due to some of the assessments we've seen for our region, we know that climate change poses a variety of different risks to public health, to local ecosystems, to economic viability, to a lot of the goals that we have for our region. And there's been some work underway in the region to minimize those risks, but at the same time, the guiding force behind the development of the climate mitigation plan was a recognition that we should also be doing something to reduce how we're contributing to the greenhouse gas emissions that cause climate change. And so the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, although other climate work had gone on in the region before this and continues on afterwards, was sort of a way of putting that information together, setting some goals, recognizing that our economy and the region the ways that we behave are really interlinked, and trying to identify strategies and actions that would be the most effective at reaching the goals that we have for our community in the face of climate change. And that plan was adopted or was completed in 2020 and then approved by our 4 partner jurisdictions in early 2021. The climate mitigation plan is a multi-jurisdictional plan. It's put together by a partnership among Thurston County, Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. And Thurston Regional Planning Council has been in a more of an administrative role in helping to kind of coordinate that process and pull it together. The plan itself used in a sector-based emissions inventory, which we'll talk about a little bit more. It includes a number of strategies and actions that are targeted. We used an analysis to kind of identify which ones would have the biggest impact and meet our community goals. And so that's what's included in there. And what we're working on now is sort of, that was a really big push, a lot of public outreach, a lot of input went into developing that plan. But almost the harder part is saying, okay, we have this plan. How do we make it real? How do we implement all these different things on the ground? Where do we start? And how do we kind of get that traction? And so that's been more of the story of the last, that's still underway this year and going forward. So the overall goal of the climate mitigation plan is to reduce community-wide greenhouse gas emissions using 2015 as our baseline year. We're seeking to bring those emissions down 45% by 2030 and 85% by 2050. And so all 4 jurisdictions have adopted this target. And in addition, the region has adopted this target. So at Thurston Regional Planning Council, we now use this greenhouse gas reduction target as part of our regional planning as well. And the climate mitigation plan, we refer to it as a framework for climate mitigation action. And it has these different planks or these different branches that kind of sum up what's included in it. So to move ahead on addressing climate risk in our region and reducing impacts, we're looking to first green our grid. That's primarily our electrical grid and our energy sources. So supporting action at the state level to develop greener energy sources and doing that by reducing the amount of energy that we use locally and increasing the amount of renewable energy. We're also looking to live lighter, so live in a more dense development that's less resource intensive, relying on different kinds of transportation options that are less greenhouse gas intensive. And probably of most interest to this group, reducing waste, especially food waste, which was a bigger topic when we were developing the plan. As we have a greener electrical grid, we're looking to shift more of our energy sources off of fossil fuels to use that greener energy. So both in the building sector and when we're talking about vehicles, so preparing for a transition to more electric vehicles and other types of alternative fuels. And then storing carbon, looking for ways to use our natural systems and natural processes to take more carbon out of the atmosphere and store it in trees or in agriculture, in soils, different kinds of vegetation. And underlying all of that, we recognize that to do this, to be successful, we'll need to build our local capacity, provide continued coordinated leadership, monitor our progress, and develop expertise. And we have to do all of this in a way that ensures that the costs and benefits of climate mitigation are distributed equitably across the different populations in our community. So it's a lot of different pieces, a lot of different moving pieces going forward. But burrowing in a little bit more into the solid waste strategies, we had 2 that came up when we had a really long list of actions and when we narrowed it down to a few that we focus on around solid waste. So our strategies are 1, to divert more solid waste from landfills. So reducing the amount of waste that we develop. Some of those actions are in working with businesses to reduce waste from businesses. And as I mentioned, we had a big focus on reducing food waste, so that would be important. And on the other side, we're looking for ways to reduce the consumption of carbon intensive goods and services. So that looks a little bit outside potentially Thurston County to the way that we, goods and the supply chains that we use and how carbon intensive those are. And so one of the actions we have is providing more technical assistance, a better education about how to reduce some of those impacts. And our target for solid waste is to reduce the amount of solid waste generated per capita by 10% by 2030 and by 30% by 2050. And I will say that I'll talk about this a little bit more. We're not really on track to meet that goal. And this target is complementary to or comes in addition to the regional zero waste target that was set through Sustainable Thurston, which said as a region, we're looking for no net increase in total landfill waste using the year 2010 as a baseline. And we're also not on track to meet that target as of now. So that's a little bit of background on what was included in the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. And here's a little bit of an update from the progress. We did our first progress report at the beginning of this year. As I noted, in early 2021, all 4 jurisdictions adopted the Climate Mitigation Plan or approved it. And they also signed an interlocal agreement that said they wanted to continue to work together to implement the climate plan and coordinate climate mitigation activities. And our areas of focus so far have been on really getting, for all the jurisdictions, getting their feet under them, understanding what's needed, how to move forward, looking at budgets and staffing, and thinking about what are those first next steps that they can take. And one of the big pieces that we're doing, and I'll talk a little bit more about it, is that monitoring piece. How are we tracking our progress toward our targets? And our first report used information that the Thurston Climate Action Team has developed through their greenhouse gas inventory on countywide emissions. And this uses data, the most recent data we have on emissions is from 2019. So it predates both the pandemic and the completion of the climate mitigation plan. So it doesn't reflect a lot of the changes that folks might want to see, but it does give us a picture of sort of the trajectory that we have been on. So like I said, for the climate mitigation plan, we're tracking back to the year 2015. And since that time, between 2015 and 2019, overall emissions have continued to increase. So they're up about 15% since that baseline year, which is the wrong direction, because we want them to be going down toward that 45% reduction by 2030 and an 85% reduction by 2050. I mentioned earlier that we use a sector-based emissions inventory that looks at different areas of our kind of groups of our economy or activities within Thurston County and sets emissions for those. And looking at it this way, built environment is by far our largest source of emissions, and that's energy use in buildings, in homes and in businesses, electricity, but also natural gas used for heating. And right now, a lot of that energy, we get our energy from Puget Sound Energy in our region, and a proportion of Puget Sound's energy comes from fossil fuels. That's something that's likely to change in the coming years under state regulation, but that is still our biggest sector. And transportation's not that far behind, about 1/3 of our emissions. Mostly the biggest sector is from driving gasoline-powered passenger vehicles through our region. And this little slice is the amount we get from amount of emissions generated by solid waste. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And agriculture is also a relatively small part of our emissions picture locally in the Thurston region. So looking at our 2019 emissions inventory, just specifically looking at solid waste, the bulk of our emissions for that 4% that we have is we look at the waste that we produce, how it is transported, most of it out to the landfill in Clickitat County. And there are some assumptions that are built into this about how much our waste that we create when it's in the landfill, how much it generates methane, which is a greenhouse gas. So that's how we get to the bulk of this number. We also look at some of the emissions that come through other types of solid waste processing, a small amount of different kinds of greenhouse gases that are created by composting, for example, and also the transportation out to the landfill. I remember when we were developing the plan, I talked a lot with a number of the folks who are in this group who are much more informed about the specifics about what happens in our waste system. And something we're looking at doing this year and going forward is making sure that the assumptions that go into this assessment really reflect better what's happening on the ground in our system. And I saw Steve's hand go up, and Steve was really contributed a lot to developing this. It's something that I think we're still looking at, because we know that our at the Roosevelt landfill, there's a lot of work going on to capture methane, to reuse it, to find it as an energy source. And that's something that's partially accounted for in this, but it's something we're looking to better and think about going forward.
Yeah,
Steve,
I mean,
did you want to add?
more than willing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would be more than willing to help facilitate a meeting between the Clickitat County PUD as well as our environmental team on really truly finding the landfill emission that currently are happening. I mean, we're collecting anywhere between 95 and 97% of the methane gas and generated into renewable natural gas, which is actually being used right here in Thurston County by Puget Sound Energy. So I don't think that this story, I don't think we're really at 4% for Thurston County. I think it's a lot less than that if you actually take a look at the RNG as well as the amount of methane that we're capturing at Roosevelt. So I'd be more than happy to help facilitate that at some point if you'd like me to do that.
I really appreciate that. And I think we would like to do that. A change that's happening, I'll talk about this more later this year, is that for the past 10 years, the inventory has been completed by Thurston Climate Action Team, which is a volunteer group. It's been done. They've done a great and amazing job pulling all this data together on a voluntary basis. But part of the agreement under this ongoing interlocal agreement is we said this is a really important data source. We're going to need it every year. So now it's part of TRPC's data program. And so Casey Mock, who's on the meeting today, is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on that effort to really look into those assumptions. So this, for example, this estimate, how we get to that about 90% of our solid waste emissions come from landfill methane. It's based on certain kinds of equations and standards that are developed, that TCAT used when they're developing their protocol, and they're standard across the country, but they don't. It doesn't necessarily reflect all the level of renewable natural gas capture and processing that's happening in our system, and so that's something we're really looking to improve on this year as we do the 2020 and 2021 inventories.
Thanks for that information, Steve.
But looking at what we have now, as I mentioned, we're not on track to meet our targets that we have. And in fact, sort of separate from emissions, we have a target of reducing the waste that's going to the landfill in the first place. And overall, landfill solid waste per capita is up about 12% between 2015 and 2020. So in our annual report, though, I highlighted a lot of the great education programs that Thurston County Solid Waste does and gets out in the community, and it's nice to hear there's more of that going on in the near future. But that's really, like a lot of the tools that this group talks about are the tools that we have in our region to better meet these goals. Another thing that I'll talk about more, but something we completed in the last year, I mentioned that we have an sector-based emissions inventory. So that looks at those big sectors, energy use in buildings, transportation, and it really looks at the emissions that are generated by activities that occur within Thurston County And with some exceptions, and the processing at the landfill is one of them, it doesn't think too much about activities we do in Thurston County that might cause emissions to be emitted somewhere else. So if we are purchasing goods that are produced somewhere else, but it's coming from Thurston County, how are we maybe driving emissions in areas outside our borders? There are different kinds of methodologies that look at that type of emissions. And a question we frequently got when we were developing the plan is people said, well, what about consumption-based emissions? What's our emission? How much are we contributing when we think about our activities beyond the borders of Thurston County? And so something we dug into this year was understanding that a little bit more. So a consumption-based emissions inventory looks at emissions from all activities in a region, regardless of where they are emitted. And we looked at a number of different assessments that were out there, one done by the state of Oregon. They're pretty complicated. But one tool that we found was out of the University of California, Berkeley, that does some general estimates around consumption-based emissions. And we thought for the time being, we just wanted a general picture about how big our consumption-based emissions load might be. And so using that estimate, we got a rough estimate that looking at consumption-based emissions, our greenhouse gas contributions are around 5.6 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year. And so in our annual inventory, when we looked at sector-based, it's about 3.3 million tons. And so generally, if we bring in that bigger picture, it's higher. Now neither of these, both methods have their strengths and their weaknesses. They're good at accounting for some things and they're less good at accounting for other things. So this is our consumption-based emissions are something we might come into and dig into a little bit more as we work on our monitoring program. But this estimate gives us at least a rough baseline to understand how big that broader picture might be. And if we were using consumption-based emissions, that waste or consumption wedge would likely be pretty different from the 4% we have now. So as I mentioned, the 4 jurisdictions involved in the climate mitigation plan have developed an interlocal agreement for the next 3 years, saying they want to continue to work together to implement the climate mitigation plan. And their specific goals are they want to maintain momentum for local climate action. They're looking to develop efficient regional solutions, ways that we can work together to reduce sources of greenhouse gases. They want to make sure they're providing accountability on our progress toward achieving those targets and building public awareness and engagement at a regional level. And as part of that, we have a work program, and I'll mention some of the things that we're working on this year. We have a steering committee made up of elected officials from each of those partners that meets monthly to coordinate activities. There's also a team of staff from the jurisdictions to talk about where we should focus our regional efforts. This year, some of the things that the group is working on is digging into some questions around energy efficiency and around that carbon storage question that was in the climate mitigation plan. There's also a study underway to look at the costs associated with shifting more of our energy sources to electricity. So building electricity policies, building electrification policies and decarbonization. And we're also looking at some questions about financing. What are different financing streams that might help fund some of the work in the climate mitigation plan? Part of that is looking at a lot of the funding that might come available, for example, through the federal infrastructure package or other types of federal or state programs that are out there. As I mentioned, one of the big things we're working on this year is taking over and kind of revamping and really digging into the greenhouse gas inventory and making sure that what we're showing in our monitoring program is accurately reflecting what's happening out here in the world, and that way when we take actions, we know it will be able to show the impact of them as we track progress going forward. And then something else that's underway is that we are going to be convening an advisory work group. We just completed a first round of recruitment for that group and are probably going to do a little bit more recruitment to get community members with a range of different perspectives to help advise the elected officials and staff on different kinds of where our priorities should be, how we should be focusing on things, what they think we should be doing to make more progress. And I want to emphasize that as we shifted into implementation, when we developed the plan, we had our actions sort of fell into these 4 buckets. So some of the work we do is tracking things that are happening on the state level, including legislation that's passing that might be relevant for our region, or work that's underway, for example, at the State Building Code Council that affects buildings in Thurston County. I talked a bit about the regional coordination work, but a lot of the work that's going on now is happening at the individual jurisdictions. So Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, Thurston County staff are all have different plans and programs underway that they're investing in and working on to reduce emissions. And some of those can serve as models across our region for the other partners. And some of them, there's a really great network that we have for sharing information and learning from each other and kind of cooperatively reaching kind of to chip away at some of these actions. But we also rely on a lot of partners in our community. It's a big lift, and so it requires a lot of partnership from many different organizations across the region in order to get all the work done that's part of that plan. So that continues to be part of the discussions that we have. And I will leave it at that. Something that I'm happy to take any questions, but I'm also really interested in hearing from this group about ways, maybe where the focus on the solid waste portions of the climate plan should be. I will say that coming out of the gate, because it is a smaller part of our overall inventory, our focus has been more on some of the other sectors. So energy use in buildings and transportation and land use management has gotten more of the focus, and there's been less focus on questions around solid waste and how we could be addressing those emissions or minimizing waste. And I'm curious, I know there's been some pretty significant legislation passed the state level that I'm guessing that you all have talked about a little bit that will affect our region going forward. And there's lots of work also underway locally. And I'm curious to hear, are there things that we should be bringing to our steering committee's attention? Are there things that should be getting more attention generally as we look to meet these targets? And I'll stop sharing there.
Ed.
Yes, Ed Conkle, City of Lacey. So my understanding, this is a very big, elaborate plan. There's going to be a part where it's going to be a big consumer public ask. When it comes to rate fees, when it comes to behaviors, there's a myriad of different things that incorporate this plan for climate change mitigation. My question is there going to be any ballot initiatives where we're getting public sentiment that the public is fully on board with this?
That's a good question. It's possible that could be something in the future if there's a particular type of funding stream at a regional level that folks may want to do.
A funding stream. It's basically trying to shape and change the behavior of the public at large with how they consume, what they throw in the landfills, what kind of heating systems they have, what kind of cars they drive. There's all sorts of different ways that this is going to have a direct impact on the public, on individuals. And my concern is the public on board for this mitigation plan? And the answer is you don't know, because we haven't truly asked the public. And the feedback that you're getting from the public is predominantly people who support climate change mitigation. But we, just in the city of Lacey, we have a population of roughly 57,000 people. Less than a handful, as far as I understand, from the city of Lacey participated in getting the public feedback during your studies. So my suggestion is that we really should consider some of these movements to be on the ballot and get some public sentiment on, is this the right direction for our jurisdictions?
Thanks for that input. I know there was a lot of public engagement as part of the development of the plan. That part is over, but I do know with each of the as jurisdictions and partners are taking forward specific action, there are a lot of opportunities and different options for folks to gather more public input going forward. And so that's definitely
I
something
understand
that
but
can be on
most
the
people
table.
most people are not engaged with what's going on. Most people work for a living, they live their lives, they come home, they take care of their kids. They don't have time to get online and voice their public opinions about climate change mitigation. But they do take time to fill out a ballot.
So we'll go to Richard and then Jim.
I'm sorry, my comment here is that, while I certainly appreciate the need to get, buy-in, particularly when you have new revenue streams you're talking about and that sort of thing, you need to get everybody to vote on these things. But there are a lot of people in the county who are just looking and wondering how they can help on the issue, and too little is done to actually encourage the public to reduce their fossil fuel use, and they can reduce it in a variety of ways through solar panels, electric cars, electric appliances, and so forth. And I've made the transition at my home pretty completely now to where I generate all my power, have an all-electric home. I've got all electric garden appliances, riding mower, all of that stuff. It all works great. The technologies have all improved tremendously. The electric car I have now is the nicest car I've ever owned. It's smooth, it's quiet, it has very low maintenance. People need to get that message, and there needs to be more encouragement in general for people who want to do this to go ahead and take personal responsibility for it. Too many people that I talk to are looking to government to do everything, and I think that right now we have a paralyzed process to some degree.
So for people like me that burn gas, that use natural gas to heat their homes, even in my lawn appliances, my lawnmower, my chainsaw, all of those things are gas powered. Is that a suggestion that I'm not being responsible?
No, not at all. But what I would say is,
so I can't afford to electrify my house and buy an electric car. I'm glad that you can, but most of the public are in the same situation I am, where we live on a budget.
My point is simply to encourage people to do that, not to shame them into it, but for those who would like to do it, these are the things they can do. And it would be helpful if we set a good example to people so that they can do that. And when I don't know, when you consider buying a new lawnmower, for instance, or something like that, give an electric a thought, because they're actually quite powerful. They work quite well now. The old days of weak batteries and weak motors have passed. Good equipment is available now. And I'm not trying to say that, I'm better than you are. I'm simply saying that I've done the transition and found that it's not really very hard and hasn't cost me any more money. And I'm not spending any money on gasoline or waiting in lines to buy it.
So far.
So we'll go to Jim and then Steve.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. And I think, to Ed's point, if we're talking about culture change, we have to have a much broader conversation with the community than we are. And like that, just fundamental. And I think within the city limits, we know, because we see what happens in elections, and pro-planet people get elected overwhelmingly. But as soon as you get out in the UGA, we have less of those kinds of conversations happening, especially because the countywide electeds don't get sort of into that level of their regular election. So I agree, we need to have more conversation, because to both your points, it's about engaging people in this culture change, because and honestly the costs are less, but it's the upfront investments that it takes to transition things. So how can we make sure that we don't pass the costs on to our low-income community members and our neighbors when that happens? I think I wanted to make an observation that I'm hearing a lot of putting the trees out as the carbon solution, that we cannot plant our way out of this. We cannot meet our goals by planting trees and saving trees. So trees are a renewable agricultural resource in Thurston County that if we don't recognize that and start shipping in other things, we increase our carbon costs. And so the last thing I want to say though is really when I think about this presentation, my mind goes to our facilities work that we're doing at SWAC right now. The South County design and review for the transfer stations and the redesign of the work. And my question becomes, how can we do it different? Because all of this and all that we're seeing from Allison is about diversion, right? And so are we building a waste transfer station, or are we building a state-of-the-art diversion facility that's intention is to reduce landfill, reduce what we put in the landfill, and then all around that, is it electric? What kind of vehicles are coming in and out of there? Are there places to charge big trucks when that comes and we need that? We're seeing those electric hauling vehicles come online. So, to me, it's one thing to talk about the sort of politics of this, but we have a lot of opportunity in our 3% just in the facility conversations we're having right now.
Good point. Steve.
Yeah, so I think, this is a good conversation to have. I mean, I think that 90% of the policy, though, regarding transportation, electricity, and solid waste is coming from the state. So 1799 is going to be the big factor in solid waste as it relates to organics diversion. California has had similar legislation, and we're actually implementing new contracts currently in California. Most of those communities have seen a 40 to 100% increase in rates, depending on what type of program that they had initially. The good news is that the communities that are a little bit more advanced are having less financial impact to their communities, as low as 15 to 20%. But the communities are kind of in the middle range are seeing that 40%. The communities that have done nothing on organics are at 100%. The good news is that Thurston County is pretty well along when it comes to organics. So I think that is actually a huge benefit to the community at large. The good news is that electric route trucks are currently running by Republic Services in 3 communities, including Boise. We will be implementing electric truck routes in Oregon next year, as well as in Washington next year. So electric trucks are right around the corner. They actually can do a full route. They actually carry more material. The one issue, though, is that they are substantially heavier than the current route trucks. So there are absolutely trade-offs involved with running those. The city of Boise absolutely loves the fact that we're running trucks in their community that are actually quiet. I will email out to the group videos of the electric trucks running in Boise. You cannot literally you can't hear them come down the road. It's actually absolutely fantastic. Their brakes are not needed. The trucks actually kind of stop on their own. We anticipate that brakes will need to be replaced about every 5 to 7 years based on the fact of how the trucks work. I mean, it's incredible technology and we're really close. I mean, I think we do need to let the community know that these changes are going to impact their bottom line, particularly electricity. But at the end of the day, the legislature is driving this, not local communities. I think ultimately most of the burden is going to be put on local communities to take the brunt of the assaults from local citizens when it comes to pain, but the legislature is the one driving it.
Thanks for that, Steve. Delroy? We can't hear you, Delroy.
Oh, okay, thank you.
There you are.
We hear a lot about the things that we need to accomplish to meet the change. But what you don't hear much about is we need an adequate infrastructure to support that. And there's a lot of areas that are experiencing brownout with the current status. And I just wanted to point that out, because as all this comes online, there's going to be negative impacts unless they really look at the infrastructure. And That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Delroy. Anybody else have comments or questions for Allison? I'm not seeing any other hands.
Renee, I had one other
yes.
comment on
Yeah.
Delroy's comment. As an example, in California, they're short 160 organics facilities to actually implement their legislation. So to Delroy's point, that he's spot on. They actually started implementing the law well before they had the infrastructure in place to actually do it. So that is going to be a problem.
Yeah, thanks for that, both Delroy and Steve, for that information. Any other comments or questions for Allison? Joan?
I just have a comment. It's kind of, Jim pushed my button a little bit after I was looking at all the different things that Allison presented on the tree of things we should do. Maybe we can't plant our way out of something, but we certainly can preserve our way into something, which is to continue to do our planning and build our infrastructures and have our city planning departments and whatever have good tree preservation rules that are enforced, because it makes a huge difference when you cut down trees. And we just, maybe that's not the thing that's going to save the whole planet, but it is certainly going to help it and to keep it from, heating up and so forth. And I think the balance between development and preservation, as was written on your tree, Allison, of trees and carbon sequestration and the prairies and all that kind of thing. That's old fashioned, but I don't want to lose track of that while we're building charging stations. So
well, and sequestration is absolutely one piece of this puzzle, and it is a puzzle. It's going to take a lot of pieces. Yeah. I'm sorry, Joan.
No, I just wanted to remind us, and I bring this up with our city, that how we're doing our planning or how we're putting into practice the climate mitigation work and plan. Let's not lose sight of what's right in front of us.
Thank you for that. Delroy, did you have another comment?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
How about you, Steve? Your hand is still up.
Sorry about that.
And it looks like Jeff has his hand up.
I do. I just wanted to chip in to Allison. One thing to point out, and it's always a little disconcerting and disappointing to see how our waste stream has grown. And one thing that I think is going to start to help us out is over the past couple of years, our education and outreach staff, one, was depleted. Two, for the last couple of years, hasn't been able to get out into the community and do a lot of the educational and outreach that we've typically would have done. We're finally fully staffed up again and finally getting back out into the community. So I'm hoping to see some improvements on some of the waste reduction and recycling efforts that sadly over the last number of years have not been there. So I'm hoping we can pick up on that aspect of it so that we can get people throwing a little bit less material away and hopefully consuming less in the first place.
Thanks for that reminder, Jeff. That's great. Anything else for Allison? Thanks for being here today, Allison. Really appreciate the update.
Yeah, I would just thank you all so much. A really great conversation. And what I heard from folks, some things that really resonated. One is that I completely agree that continuing that conversation in the community is extremely important. I think the programs that Thurston County Solid Waste, the education and outreach programs that are done are critically important, and it is important that they be, something we highlighted in the plan is that those be expanded and maintained and continued, and expanded throughout the community. Folks are completely correct that working to prepare for some of these state level changes and these behavior changes will help minimize the impact to all of our communities, including being thoughtful about how they affect vulnerable communities. And I really think groups like the SWAC are a key place. Like that high level planning work is done, and the only way these actions move forward are when we get down into the nitty gritty of thinking about how we're planning our new facilities, how we're arranging our programs, It doesn't mean necessarily that we need new programs or different things or even a lot of new money for some of these actions, but it does take thinking about how we do things in a different way that's consistent with these targets. And I think it's all the comments that I heard today, I think are really, really important for us to keep in mind as we move forward with this effort. So if you have any other ideas, my contact information is on the slides, or I'm sure you can get it from staff. Feel free to reach out. Ways that we can keep making solid waste moving forward is a really critical part of this plan. And thank you so much for your time and your work.
Thank you, Allison. And with that, we're going to move to Laura with an update from the Department of Ecology. Laura.
Hi, everybody. What great conversation. I wanted to just take a few minutes of your time today to do a quick update on, just things that may or may not have been on your radar. So I apologize if these things are things that you are already aware of, but just in case. So I'm going to start with, let me do the technology here. Okay, so I like to call these, we're calling them hot topics for the SWACs. Just wanted to share some quick updates here that you may or may not, as I mentioned, you may or may not know about. But one of them is that the Washington Public Works Board has low interest loans that are available for local infrastructure projects. And I know you also mentioned the federal money that's available. So if you want additional information on that, feel free to get a hold of me, let me know. Or you can go to the Public Works webpage that's listed here on this slide, as well as I can provide these links for everybody. There's also right now initiative with Next Cycle Washington. They're looking to promote circular economy in Washington State, and they're an accelerator style program, and they want to get entrepreneurs, small businesses, various other groups involved in their work. And so if you're interested in looking at how to get some support and expertise on starting some circular economy types of businesses or that sort of thing, they would be a good place to check out. There's a organization, Perpetual, that is also looking for partner cities to work on reusable foodware systems. And so that's another option that I can pass on some additional information if anyone is interested in that particular piece. I wanted to highlight that ecology has been asked. We used to have a database of information that was available for our partners in local jurisdictions. And this is something that kind of went to the wayside. And so we've been asked to make it happen again. So we've been working on this, what we're calling a library, the Planning and Waste Reduction Library, and it's being hosted on Box, which is it's sort of like a Google Drive or that sort of thing. It's a place where all this information can be housed. And so we would really appreciate, we're just piloting it right now. It has a lot of resources in it already. And there are here are some of the things that you can access in there. And we are hoping to flesh it out and make it more useful for you. So anybody who's interested in taking a look at what's in there now, feel free to let me know, and I can send you that link, or I'll pass it on to the group. And right now it has quite a bit in it on planning and plan elements, which may not be something you're needing at the moment, but state and local data and policy, as well as program resources, and all of the state's solid waste and hazardous waste plans and crops. So you can look through folders and find information. But if you really want to be able to get in there and find stuff as it gets more and more, as there's more and more resources in there, you would want to get a free license. And I have information about how to go about doing that. It's also the first document that comes up when you go into the link that I can provide is how to get that license, that free license, if you want to do that. And what that does is provides you an opportunity to have a really robust search option inside Box. So when you put stuff in the search box, you can find a lot of things related to the topic you're looking for much more quickly than sort of going through each folder and looking at all that different resources that are there. So happy to provide that for you. I know there's a lot of talk, of course, about 1799. It's a big bill that encompasses a lot of different things. And right now, the person at Ecology that is doing the most work on that is Sherry Sullivan. And she's the one that you would want to speak to with questions about 1799. And she and a team of people at Ecology are working on figuring out all the logistics and details to the degree possible. We do have information on Box about 1799. It's pretty basic so far because a lot of that stuff is still being worked out, but there is a little bit in there. There is a new web page on the Ecology website about 1799, so you can look that up. It summarizes information about the bill. There's also information on the enacting legislation webpage. So those are a couple of resources for you. And then lastly, Zero Waste Washington developed a draft of a composting procurement ordinance framework. So that is available. That is not something that was developed by or prepared by Ecology, just so that that's really clear. If you want to take a look at it, feel free to go find it. We have it on our Box site. It's also available through Heather Trim at Zero Waste Washington, and her contact information is there. And again, I'm happy to provide that for anybody who's interested. So the other thing we're doing is sort of taking questions from you or other groups, anybody that has questions about 1799, just taking them and consolidating that so that we can begin providing information that answers those questions, whether that's like a frequently asked questions document or through some other avenues, but trying to accumulate the questions that people have about the bill. So that's a little bit about that. And for me, that's all. Thank you very much for your few minutes of time. I'm happy to try and answer any questions that anybody has regarding any of that information or anything else at Ecology that I can try to answer for you.
Laura, thank you so much for reminding us about the resources you have to make all of our lives a little bit easier. Thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Laura? I'm not seeing any hands. This is such a unique environment in which to run a meeting.
So are you gonna send that deck out?
I don't have it, but Laura, if you send it to me, I'm happy to send it out.
Yeah, I will certainly do that.
That would really be great. Thank you.
Yep.
And if there are no questions or other comments for Laura, Jeff, you are up.
Okay, well, it looks like I got 12 minutes here. I have a number of items that's going to give you some updates on. I'm going to start with kind of some of the waste reduction recycling items that are hot topics right now. First off, an all-county mailer that was prepared by our education and outreach staff. So this basically is an updated recycling guide. The mailer was actually sent out to almost 112,000 residential addresses throughout the county. So basically, you should have, if you live in Thurston County, you should have received this the week of June 20th. So I'm hoping those of you that lived here actually received yours. We actually had a lot of very positive responses on social media from our community members, and we saw a significant bump in our, where do I take my online waste wizard? So we noticed that people were out there and looking and inquiring to see what they could do with their materials. We had over almost 250 people scan the QR code that was included on the mailer, which also took them to our newly updated website. So, so anyway, that was exciting. Like, again, hopefully those of you that live within the county receive that. We also working with our waste haulers to include this updated guide in their new customer materials, so the items that they hand out when somebody signs up for service. So these were included a magnet on them, so when you receive them, you could put them on a refrigerator, and they had the, again, the quick reference for what you could recycle and what not to. Any questions on that? No. We also, our E&O staff also put out the spring summer issue of Trash Talk newsletters, which was distributed to 4th and 5th grade classes in Thurston County schools back in the beginning of June. A total of 89 classrooms received these newsletters, which covered almost 2,700 students. Most of these were within the North Thurston School District. So the newsletters feature information about what to do with it was particularly focused on household hazardous waste in this particular issue. Where we delivered a few less classrooms than last year, but we're making inroads with some other school districts in the county, and also included additional classes in Tumwater in this particular issue. Next up is we held our Secure Your Load event back in June, and basically it was a partnership with the Department of Ecology. So we actually had this event at our Rainier and Rochester drop box sites. The events were held on the weekend of June 11th and 12th. And we had a total of 160 people pre-registered to receive their cargo nets. But we ended up giving away 500 of those nets between those two events. So we had a lot of contacts with individuals. We did a lot of promotion online through social media and elsewhere. It was very well received. We took data, collected data before the event for a 2-week period before the event at our Dropbox sites, and then 2-week period after the event. That data was not particularly helpful from what we have found as far as showing a change of behavior, because your sample size is probably too small. You know, they probably weren't hitting the same customers, but the people that received them appear to be using them, and we got a lot of education and outreach in there. So I want to thank Department of Ecology for promoting and providing that event for us. Additionally, I kind of refer to it when we're talking about the climate change. We are getting out in the community. We're finally having our first tabling events in almost 3 years out in the community this summer. We will be at the South Sound, for example, in this coming month, we'll be at the South Sound Barbecue on Saturday, July 9th. We'll have a table and we'll be out there providing information and education. We'll be at the Nisqually Valley Barbecue on Saturday, July 23rd. Again, like we mentioned previously, we'll be at the Yelm Barbecue also on the 23rd. Well, that's the same one, actually. Sorry, Thurston County Fair. Actually, we will be at Thurston County Fair from Wednesday through Sunday at July 27th to the 31st as well. So we're excited that we're finally able to get back out in the public again after, you know, a couple of years of COVID, and being able to see people and talk to folks and do much more education and outreach. A few more here, so I'll keep going. If anybody has anything, a question, just feel free to chime in and ask. We just want to let people know on July 27th this month, the manufacturer of our compactor, SSI, from down in Oregon, will be on site at the work performing a condition assessment of our compactor to determine, it's about a 5-year-old compactor, but we want to determine whether there's any specific maintenance and or overhauls needed to be performed on the unit, just to make sure that it remains operational with minimal downtime for the upcoming years. As you know, we'll be moving into a new contracted operations beginning in May next year. We just want to make sure that the equipment is working as it needs to. Depending on what the maintenance that they recommend and it's needed, and the associated costs. If it's, if it's really in poor shape and the cost to fix it are extremely high, we will be considering if there's a need to purchase a new one versus repair. But that's really going to depend on, what level of effort that's needed. So we'll be doing that analysis after we have that assessment done. Additionally, out at our Rainier and Rochester Dropbox sites, we have been in the process for a while of looking at providing small break buildings. Currently at those two sites, if you've been there, and some of you have, our little toll house is a teeny little building that has a small work area and a small bathroom, but basically no space for them to eat lunch or to take a break, or is there, so short of being in their car or out standing out in the weather. So we are looking at having constructed small movable, like an 8-foot by 20-foot mini office building that will basically just allow power and heat and air conditioning, but it'll be for basically taking breaks. Additionally, when our contractor is out working on those sites, they additionally have no place undercover to go. So again, it'll provide a place where they can have their lunch, etc. That is not provided at this point. So we have some plans built up. We're currently in the process of getting building permits for them. The goal, we're supposed to have those permits hopefully by the end of July, and the goal will be to put it out to bid shortly afterwards. So hopefully this fall we will have that available for our staff. Let's see, how much time do I have left? 4 minutes. Okay, I've got two more items I'll cover quickly. We had mentioned, I think, in our capital improvements presentation previously. There's the work has a pumps project where it's basically going to go out and repair or replace the majority of the pumps for our stormwater, leachate collection, and gas and landfill gas systems, because majority of that infrastructure is very old and beginning to fail. We put that out to bid last week, actually, it's last Thursday. The engineer's estimate for the work was a little bit over $2 million. Unfortunately, those bids came in at over $3 million. So we are rethinking our strategy on that. We may break it down into some smaller pieces and rebid it. So this has not been unusual for construction projects recently, coming in much higher than had previously been expected because of course, the inflation and the difficulty of getting certain parts. So contractors are definitely covering their bases. So just to be aware of that and be more coming on that when we figure out how we're going to move forward on that particular project. And lastly, our waste characterization study, we had a sort from Wendy and HDR's crew that was scheduled for the 4th week of June 20th, that week. Unfortunately, we had to be rescheduled due to we had an overabundance of waste at the work facility that made the sorting area unsuitable and unsafe for their work. So another summer date is being looked at and will be rescheduled. So I think that's all I have, and it's probably all the time I have too. So anybody has any questions on any of those?
You just have nothing going on, Jeff.
That's it. We're bored here. Really. Yeah. So.
Yeah, you're bored, I can tell. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Jeff? That was a very comprehensive report, Jeff. Thank you. Delroy.
I have my hand up.
Yeah.
I just as a suggestion, when you're evaluating the compactor and instead of looking at the number of years it's been in operation, you might want to take a look at the tonnage that's gone through that compactor and compare it to previous years. And I think it also gives you a better idea of looking at towards the future of what you're going to be looking at.
Absolutely, that is a consideration because it is getting heavier usage on it as used.
Thanks
as
for
was
that.
evident in the presentation earlier. Our waste stream continues to grow.
Yeah. I hope you all get a chance to see the note from Chris Hawkins in chat. Today's presentations have been exceptionally good. Thank you all for your input. We have just like half a minute left. Does anybody have an announcement or anything for the good of our group? If not, we will adjourn right on time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good time. Have a good day.
Bye.